the first witness examination competition semi-final rounds. This is the first intra OP Jindal Global University witness examination competition that is being conducted by Trial Advocacy Society. Today we are having two judges, two very distinguished judges. One is Mr. Manu Sharma, another is Mr. Kapil Sankla. We all would be aware that Advocate Manu Sharma sir happened to come on 27th 8th 2022 to our university, wherein he delivered a wonderful lecture on strategies of a defense lawyer. It was an incredible session. Students actually loved it. We all know our guests and they require no introduction, but definitely, as a matter of custom, I would just be giving brief introduction about both our guests. Sir Manu Sharma happened to do his law from Faculty of Law, Delhi University, and Sir is having a very robust criminal law practice, and such famous cases that he has represented are the 2G scam case. Then it is the Om Prakash Chautala in the PMLA case. Sir has also represented Aditya Talwar in the aviation scam case. This is the brief introduction for Sir Manu Sharma. Then coming on to Sir Kapil Sankla. Sir happened to do his graduation from SRCC. Thereafter, sir also did his hotel management from IHM Pusa. Thereafter, sir happened to do his law from Delhi University, and it has been almost 20 years that the sir has set up his Sankla and Associates. Sir is having a robust practice in criminal law as well. We are having a total of we like at the time when these blueprints had to be created, there were 75 teams. Each team was comprising up to two members. That means 150 participants were there. We had our first oral round on 27/4/2024, and there were about 22 teams. Thereafter, in the quarterfinals, only 8 teams had qualified. Now, for the semi-finals, we have 4 teams. So I wish all the very best to all our teams. Now I'll just be inviting the first two teams. Prior to that, I'll just request Bhuvna to come and tell the brief rules to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. We'll be starting the round briefly. So, the total round will be for 30 minutes. The prosecution will have 15 minutes, and the defense will have 15 minutes. So, you can see two clocks here in the background. So, this is for prosecution, and that is for the defense. The teams will sit accordingly as well. So, we'll start the timer once you start your chief and cross, and then after that, closing. But do note the timer will stop once you sit back in your seats and you stop your examination. So don't worry about that. So make sure you stick to the time slot and don't exceed your time because you will accrue penalty accordingly. And if you have any other doubts, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we can start the round. The teams can come to the stage.
This case. Can I start? Permission to refer to the bench collectively as your honors. Thank you. Permission to call Mr. Ramakrishna for chief examination. Thank you. Please state your full name for the record.
My name is Ramakrishna.
What is your relationship with this incident?
So I'm a farmer by profession and I'm a neighbor to the accused and the deceased in this case.
Okay. Can you please describe the incident?
So as I just mentioned, I'm a farmer and this incident occurred on 30th June in the morning. In the morning, the timing was around 6:30 a.m. So I went out to tend to my crops. It was almost the harvest season at that particular time. So when I was in my field, I saw that Narayan and Baldev were arguing with each other. I saw that Baldev hurled some accusations at Narayan, and Narayan was already sitting on his tractor. So both of them, I presume, were also tending to their crops only. Then I saw that Baldev was saying things like chor chor, and he was accusing Narayan of something, to which Narayan got very agitated very suddenly. And then while he was sitting on his tractor, he, in his agitation and his rage, he he started driving the tractor very aggressively, and and Narayan then charged towards Baldev. And then I saw that Narayan sitting on his tractor, he mauled the tractor over Baldev completely.
Was Mr. Baldev in control of his movements? Could he move around properly?
I don't think he was completely in control of his actions.
Did Mr. Baldev jump in front of the tractor?
No,
He did not.
No, he did not.
Was Narayan driving the tractor at a fast pace?
Yes, faster than how we usually drive a tractor while tending to our crops.
May the Honorable Court note that Mr. Narayan was driving at a speed that shows his intent to hit Mr. Baldev with his tractor. Mr. Ramakrishna, did you watch the entire scene?
Yes, I was there.
You are an eyewitness to the entire incident.
Yes, I am.
Did Narayan at any point stop the vehicle before hitting his brother?
No, he did not.
He did not? Thank you. And what you mentioned that it was agricultural land, is that correct?
That is correct.
May the Honorable Court note that it was agricultural land that Mr. Narayan trespassed on, therefore it caused damage, attracting section 427 of the Saurashtra Penal Code for causing damage to agricultural land. Mr. Ramakrishna, why didn't you help the neighbor when he collapsed?
So I saw the entire incident, but I must tell you that our village is really small, and what the villagers feel is that, we don't have very cordial relations with the government or the police, because we are small people. We don't want any tussle or everything. Further, I thought his family members would already be there to assist him, so I did not take any initiative as
Thank you.
such.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ramakrishna.
Thank you.
Permission to call witness Ankit Sharma for chief examination. Can you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Ankit Sharma.
Okay. What is your relationship with this case?
So I'm a local shopkeeper and I was delivering supplies to all of the plots nearby.
Okay. Can you please describe what you saw on the day of the incident?
So I could see from far away, because I was delivering supplies to all nearby plots. I could see Narayan on the tractor and Baldev in front of him, and I could see that they were arguing, but I couldn't hear the argument. And then the next thing that I saw was Narayan driving the tractor towards Baldev, and the next thing I saw was Baldev on the ground.
Was Narayan driving the tractor at a very high pace?
Yes,
So you would say that it could kill a person if he hit it?
absolutely.
Thank you. And from where you saw the incident, was the tractor in good condition?
Yeah.
Okay. And did he have enough time to stop the tractor before hitting Mr. Baldev?
I mean, if he was in control of the tractor, but then yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ankit. May the Honorable Court note that we've established two neutral witnesses that Mr. Narayan had enough time and capability to stop the tractor or even move slowly, but he chose to drive it rashly and hit the deceased with his tractor, showing intent and motive to kill the deceased. Thank you, Mr. Ankit.
Good morning, Your Honors. Permission to call Mr. Ramakrishna to the stand for cross-examination. So, Mr. Ramakrishna, can you please tell me what time was the incident?
The incident occurred between 6:30 a.m. And 6:45 a.m. on the morning of 30th June 2023.
Okay, all right. What were you doing there?
As I mentioned, I'm a farmer, and I was tending to my crops in the harvest season.
Right. Okay, so am I correct in assuming that you witnessed the entire incident?
Yes.
All right. So, was there ever an instance where you saw the accused Narayan Singh off the tractor? Was he always on the tractor?
Yes, so I was tending to my crops, and as soon as I heard the two people arguing, and when I diverted my attention to that side, I saw like Baldev was on his foot on the ground, and Narayan was on the tractor since the very beginning.
Your Honor, it may be noted that Mr. Ramakrishna, he witnessed the entire incident, and there was not even one single instance where he saw that the accused person was off the tractor. He was always on the tractor. And when we cross-examine the other witness, we'll come to know why this particular part is relevant. Okay, Mr. Ramakrishna, uh, did Baldev Singh try? Okay, so you said there was an altercation between the two people, right?
Yes.
And I'm assuming it was because Baldev Singh thought that the client, the accused person, was stealing his water, right?
Yes.
So what did the deceased person do to prevent the accused person from getting away with the water? Did he do something?
I just saw them arguing
Okay.
on that particular instance. I'm not sure if they did anything.
So you said that you witnessed the entire incident, right?
Yes.
Okay, so could you please elaborate on what was the conduct of the deceased person like in terms of what he tried to do to prevent the accused person from stealing his water?
So, as I said, on the day of this incident, what I witnessed was that the deceased, in this case Baldev, was saying chor chor, and he was accused, and he was accusing Narayan of theft and stealing. And before they could move towards any other discussion or for further arguments, I saw the incident unfold in front of my eyes.
Okay, all right. So could you please tell the court what was the conduct of the accused person after he allegedly mauled over the deceased person? What did he do after that?
Yes, so I saw that as well. After the incident in question, he got off his tractor and he fled from the scene.
Okay. Do you remember whether he turned off the tractor or not? Turn the ignition off?
I do not remember.
Okay, all right. Uh, so you say that you witnessed the incident from a distance, right?
Yes.
So can you be certain that there was no fault with the tractor? That it was completely because of the accused person's fault that the tractor allegedly ran over the deceased person?
I do not have enough knowledge to answer that
Right,
question.
okay. And at any point in time of the incident, did you see the accused person try to bring the tractor to a sudden stop so as to avoid hitting the deceased person?
No.
No. All right. Point to be noted, Your Honor. Mr. Ramakrishna, he claims to have seen the entire incident, and he says that there was not even one single instance where the accused person tried to bring the tractor to a sudden break. However, the physician who treated the accused person right after the incident took place, he claims that the accused person had injuries on his body, which indicated that he brought the tractor to a sudden stop so as to avoid hitting the deceased person. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
So, Mr. Sharma, when did the incident take place? Did you witness the entire incident?
So I was delivering supplies as mentioned earlier between 6:30 to 6:45, and I think it was at that time that the incident took place.
Could you pause the timer? Just pause the timer. So how do you know that it was the Singh brothers arguing?
So, as mentioned earlier, it's quite a small village, and I've been delivering supplies here for quite some time. So I know who belongs to which plot number.
But then earlier you also mentioned that you saw it from pretty far away.
Yeah, I saw it from a distance, but I know who the owners of a plot are.
All right. So then how was the attitude of Mr. Baldev Singh? Because he saw allegedly Mr. Narayan Singh steal water. So he must have been really furious if somebody sees somebody steal what they own.
Yeah. So So, as far as I could see from delivering supplies, I did not see the argument, what it was on about. I saw that they were arguing, and then I saw Narayan get onto the tractor and started driving towards Baldev.
You saw him get onto the tractor?
From far away, yes.
So just a clarification, in your earlier statement to the prosecution, you said that he was already on the tractor.
No, I said that they were on the tractor and then they ran them over. That was just a quick summary. But I saw them arguing. I mentioned in the prosecution statement.
So you didn't see him get on the tractor?
I did. They were arguing first. I could see them arguing. That's how
Okay.
I knew. Then they got on the tractor and then that's
All
how it's
right.
unfolded.
All right. So in your 161 statement, you've mentioned that in your 164 statement, you've mentioned that there was no mechanical failure as such from where you stood. So do you have a good expertise as a local shopkeeper in how a tractor would work?
So again, being from this small village and having delivered supplies here for many years, I know how a tractor is supposed to run and how it's supposed to work. But no, I don't have any expertise.
Okay, so moving on to the prosecution, you submitted that he was driving rather quite rashly. Then why is it that in your 164 statement you've said that the tractor moves smoothly, and I've quoted what your statement states?
So the reason why rashly has been put is because the driver was driving rashly. Smoothly just means that the tractor did not have any fault from where I could see.
Okay, thank you.
Defense would like to call its first defense witness, the accused himself, Mr. Narayan Singh. Mr. Narayan Singh, firstly, my deepest condolences for your loss.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
Now, can you please tell the court what were the events that transpired on the date of the incident?
On 30th June in the morning, I woke up around 6:15. I got onto my tractor and I drove onto the well on the property that we are discussing. I have a water tanker attached to my tractor, which allows me to draw water from the well. So once I reached the well, I put down the hose, got onto the tractor, and turned on the tanker, which is when my brother, Baldev, came out and he was really drunk. And I wanted to avoid him, but he came and he started hurling abuses at me. He started saying all sorts of gibberish and nonsense. And I thought it's best to now leave the scene. He was getting very agitated and angry. He tried to block the path of my tractor. I tried to leave. He was trying to climb onto it. He was hitting my tractor. And all of a sudden, I just saw that he was on the ground. I immediately turned off the tractor and I got down. And my bhabiji, she'd come out by then, Priyaji, and she started screaming at me, told me to get out. I could see that I was really disturbing her. I didn't want to cause any more trouble, so I thought it's best I leave. She asked me to so, and then I left.
All right, okay. So, can you please tell the court what time did you take the tanker towards the well?
Around 6:30 a.m. in the
Okay.
morning.
And is there any particular reason why you chose this time?
I get up early most days. I have to tend to the field work and all. And also, I know my brother Baldev, he gets up a little later. I wanted to avoid him. So I thought this is a good time to go.
Okay, so one of the reasons why you chose 6:30 was because you wanted to avoid a confrontation with your brother, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? So, point to be noted, Your Honor, from the very outset, we can see from her statement that she wanted to avoid a confrontation with her brother, which shows that she had no intention whatsoever to kill the deceased person. All right, Mr. Narayan Singh, can you please tell the court, so you mentioned that you thought that your brother was drunk. Can you please tell the court how did you reach that inference or that conclusion?
He was very unstable. He was staggering, moving all around. He just seemed very drunk from his movement and behavior, I could tell.
Okay, all right. So, why didn't you get off the tractor if you were seeing that your brother, was trying to provoke you, was trying to hit you? You could have simply just gotten off the tractor and started moving towards your house. Why didn't you do that?
I didn't want to risk any contact with my brother. He was a very hot blooded individual. He used to beat me up when we were kids as well. I wanted to avoid any interaction. I thought it's best I stay on the tractor and try to leave as
So
soon as
will I be
possible.
correct in saying that you didn't get off the tractor because you fear that you might get hurt? Okay. Okay, can you please tell the court what was your conduct after you saw the deceased person lying unconscious on the ground?
I wanted to help him. He was, at the end of the day, still my brother. So I reached out to him. I was trying to see if he was okay, what happened, which is when Bhaviji had come out by then and she started screaming at me, which is when I thought I should just.
Okay, and then what did you do after you went home?
I actually sustained some injuries from the incident, so I went to a nearby clinic, Dr. Rajiv Malhotra's clinic, to
Okay.
get checked.
And can you please tell the court what was the conduct of the accused when he saw that you were, trying to take water from the well?
My conduct?
Sorry, the deceased person's conduct.
When he was extremely agitated, he was angry, he was hurling abuses. I could see he wanted to pick a fight with me, he wanted to hit me. He was extremely agitated. So that was what his
Okay,
conduct
did he
was.
try to prevent you from getting away?
Yes.
Can you please elaborate on that? How?
He came in front of my tractor. He tried to block the path of my tractor. He tried to prevent me from driving away. Like I mentioned earlier, also, he tried to climb onto the tractor. It was very difficult to maneuver around my brother then.
Okay, and one last question. Was your son also witnessing this incident?
He was.
Okay, then why didn't your son come to your rescue?
I didn't want him involved in this. I raised my hand and told him to just stay away. I can handle this. I did not want him to get involved in this situation.
Again, point to be noted, Your Honor, the accused person could have called his son and ended the confrontation then and there itself, but because she did not want to aggravate the deceased person any further, that's why she thought it best that the son should not get involved in this particular incident. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Rajiv Malhotra to the stand. Could you please state your full name for the purposes of the record of the court?
I'm Dr. Rajiv Malhotra. Dr. Rajiv Malhotra.
And did the accused come to you right after the incident? What time was it?
I don't know where the incident happened, but the accused was in the hospital as per our records by 7:10 a.m.
By 7:10. On 30th June? Could you
Yes.
confirm? Thank you. And what was your diagnosis?
He had sustained impact trauma to his wrist and his chest, which, according to him, was from a recent braking incident with his tractor.
All right. In your 164 statement, you've mentioned, which is to magistrate, you've mentioned that he'd sprained his chest and there was bruising, which was pretty fresh. So, what would that mean?
So, I mean, fresh bruising generally indicates that the trauma is very new and that it has just occurred in less than 4 hours and the swelling is still increasing and it has not subsided.
So, you've also mentioned that it was likely in response to an emergency. So, did that mean that he's tried to stop the tractor in response to an emergency? I'm merely asking him to confirm, Your Honor, your decision. I'm merely asking him to confirm his 164 statement.
Could you repeat your question?
You've mentioned you've mentioned that it was likely in response to an emergency. So was it?
Yeah. It was usually these kinds of injuries that we observe are in response to emergencies when someone brakes very hard and has their hands very firm on the steering wheel as well.
Thank you. So it is extremely important to take note of this fact that the accused over here made an extreme effort to stop the tractor, and Mr. Baldev Singh, like we've proved earlier, was in an intoxicated state, and he tried to come deliberately in front of the tractor because he was trying to stop Narayan, his brother, from taking the water and move out of his premises, allegedly. And Narayan, the accused over here, tried his best to actually stop the tractor, and his bruises also confirm the same. The bruises cannot prove otherwise because they were fresh in nature. Thank you.
Your Honors, permission to call Dr. Rajiv Malhotra for cross-examination. Dr. Rajiv, you have mentioned in your 164 statement that the injury sustained by the accused can be corroborated with a sudden break or a collision. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this injury can be caused by a collision with another person. Is that correct?
Yes, it's generally from sudden stop of the vehicle, which causes the person who was driving it in inertia to sustain such impact trauma.
But it can be caused by a collision to a person. Is that correct?
It's caused due to a sudden brake, which can be in response to a collision if the vehicle stops suddenly.
So it can be from a collision, yes. Your Honors, okay.
Yes, it can be from a
May
collision.
the Honorable Court know that the injury sustained by the accused himself can corroborate the story of his tractor hitting the deceased. You said that it is a sudden break, right? Even if it is such a
Yes.
sudden break, can that brake be applied after colliding with a person?
I mean,
Potentially.
I'm not qualified to say that, but like, yes, if you run someone over, you can still brake, I guess.
May the Honorable Court note that the defense case that the brake was applied before hitting the deceased is based on guesswork, and they have no evidence whatsoever to prove that the brake was applied before hitting the deceased, whereas we have witnesses and evidence on record to show that the brake was not applied in time to stop the accused from hitting the deceased. Thank you, Mr. Rajiv. Your Honors, permission to call the accused on stand for cross. Mr. Narayan, how long have you been driving a tractor?
20 years.
So you know how to drive it properly?
Yes.
Were the brakes and accelerators working fine in your tractor?
My tractor was in working condition.
So you were in full control of the tractor?
Yes.
Okay. Were you driving the tractor when you had a confrontation with Mr. Baldev?
Yes.
And referring to the point you mentioned to the prosecution about avoiding a confrontation by choosing a time where Mr. Baldev was asleep, did it not occur to you that going onto a land that is currently under the control of Mr. Baldev would agitate him?
This land is currently in dispute. There is litigation ongoing regarding this land.
But it is currently under the control of Mr. Baldev?
This land is in dispute. It's not in his control. Technically, according to my father's will, the well belongs to me.
But currently it is under his control? Okay, Your Honors, I will move on to the next question. Is it true that if a man is hit by a tractor that is 30 times his weight, the injuries he would sustain would lead to death?
I don't know. Depends.
Depends on what? Is it possible for a person to be hit by a tractor and die from that injury, according to you?
It could be possible.
May the Honorable Court please note that the accused has full knowledge that a person who is being hit by a tractor 30 times his weight will suffer injuries that can lead to death. Mr. Narayan, how did your brother collapse?
He was trying to climb onto the tractor. At one point, he was he was not around in my direct vision. So I went ahead, and then he just came out of nowhere.
Do you have any evidence to prove that Mr. Baldev climbed onto your tractor?
I'm assuming if there are any eyewitnesses, if people around would have seen that, yes.
No, may the accused please note that the eyewitnesses clearly confirmed that they did not see Mr. Baldev climb onto the tractor. Do you have any evidence to prove the same?
I know he did. I saw him.
Please answer if you have any evidence to prove the same.
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
May the Honorable Court know that there is no evidence for the case that that the defense is alleging that the deceased had climbed onto the tractor, whereas we have two neutral eyewitnesses proving that he did not and that Mr. Naren had knowingly hit Mr. Baldev with the tractor. Thank you.
Permission to begin the closing statement. Your Honours, I stand before you today to prove the truth of what happened on the morning of 30th June 2023. A simple property dispute was escalated into a murder and resulted in the death of an innocent man. There are three main issues in this case. Number one, did Naren have intention to kill Mr. Baldev? Is Naren guilty under section 427? And thirdly, is Naren guilty of murder beyond reasonable doubt? The council will deal with each of these issues one by one. Issue number one, is Naren guilty for murdering Mr. Baldev? Section 300 subclause 4 of the Saurashtra Penal Code specifies that an act is murder if the person committing the act knows that it is so imminently dangerous that it must in all probability cause death. The establishment of these elements of murder in this case are as follows. Number one, there must be intention to cause death. To gauge Mr. Naren's intention, we have two eyewitnesses to say that Mr. Naren drove the tractor at Mr. Baldev with unreasonable and a lot of speed. He did not attempt to stop the tractor or walk away or even de-escalate the situation. He could have done exactly what he did 5 minutes ago, which is to flee away and de-escalate the situation, and we wouldn't all be here today. But he did not. Upon finding his brother collapsed in front of the tractor, Mr. Naren made no attempt whatsoever to get him any sort of medical help. It's almost as if he wanted his brother to succumb to the injury. Criteria 2, an act or harm caused. Criteria 2, an act or harm caused should be sufficient to cause death. The chest injury that is sustained by the deceased show that it was a hit caused by a lot of force. Therefore, there was intentional acceleration on part of Mr. Naren. And element number 3, a person should have sufficient knowledge that their act is likely to cause death. This was proven by Mr. Naren's cross-examination, where he knew that if a tractor, whose weight is way more than its victim, if it hits the person at a reasonable amount of speed, it is more than sufficient to cause their death. Mr. Naren had intent to kill Mr. Baldev. This is already established through testimonies, facts and circumstances. In arguendo, even if the court holds that Mr. Naren did not have intent, it is already proven that he had enough knowledge that his act will definitely cause the death of Mr. Baldev, and he did nothing to prevent it. Additionally, in the case of Kamalakant versus State of UP, it was held extremely similar facts to this case, where there was a property dispute and the deceased was crushed under a tractor. The court relied on the sole eyewitness testimony of a reliable eyewitness to convict the accused under section 302. Your Honor, in this case as well, we the prosecution, we have provided not only one reliable eyewitness, but two of them, who stand to gain nothing from testifying before this court today. They have no discrepancies in their 161, 164, or even the statements that were made in front of this honorable court today. Therefore, Mr. Naren satisfies all the elements that are required to prove guilt and convict him for murder under 302. Issue number 2, is Mr. Naren guilty for causing mischief? Section 425 of the SPC lays down that mischief refers to an act which is done with an intent to cause or is likely to cause any wrongful loss or damage to any person or property. In this case, Mr. Naren, as established through the chief examination of Mr. Ramakrishna, he damaged Mr. Baldev's crops by running his tractor all over the land, and the charge sheet also says that the soil was disturbed. Furthermore, in the case of Kashiben Kohli versus State of Gujarat, again extremely similar facts to this case, the appellant forcibly entered the complainant's land and destroyed all the crops that were being cultivated on it. The Supreme Court held that 427 is more than established, and the complainant in this case is guilty under 427. But however, Your Honor, since this case, the crux of this case lies that on the intent to prove murder, the prosecution would like to divert arguments back to that issue. Issue number 3, is Mr. Naren guilty beyond reasonable doubt? The defense in this case might wrongly argue in their closing statement that this is a case of culpable homicide not amounting to murder. However, the prosecution would like to take that argument and throw it out of the window right now, because in the state of Andhra Pradesh versus Raya Varapu, it is established, the court has laid down a 4-stage test to establish whether a case would amount to murder or not. The first stage for ascertaining whether a case is murder is to consider whether the accused has done an act. May the counsel please conclude. Is to ascertain whether the accused has done an act which would lead to the death of another person. This criteria is clearly established. Mr. Naren hit Mr. Baldev with his tractor and caused the death. So this first criteria is established. The second stage is to consider whether the act of the accused amounts to culpable homicide under section 299 of the SPC. Section 299 clearly states that you have to have intention to cause death, which is clearly there, and the act should have been likely to cause death. Hitting someone with a tractor that is so heavy and that is coming at them with reasonable force is more than likely to cause their death, Honor. It is a reasonable deduction. Since this second stage is also satisfied, we move on to the third stage. The court should... Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any definitive medical evidence which shows that it was 330? Because likely will not travel to 330. It will only get into 304 part 1.
Could Your Honor repeat the question, please?
The intent part,
Yes, Your
that
Honor.
it is 330 sufficient in the ordinary course of nature.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any definitive evidence of that? Because your argument of likely to cause death would make the case a slightly lower pedestal, which is 299.
Absolutely, Your
So
Honor.
the bench right now is not completely convinced whether this is a case of culpable homicide not amounting to murder or murder sentence.
Your Honor, we've conducted the chief examinations of 2 eyewitnesses who are neutral. They are not under any obligation to take either the prosecution or the defense side. They have stated that Mr. Naren drove the tractor towards Mr. Baldev with a reasonable amount of force that would be sufficient to kill him. It is a reasonable deduction that if a tractor is approaching a person, a tractor is a heavy machinery vehicle, and if it's approaching...
Intoxicated at that time.
Your Honor, the prosecution would argue that whether the victim was intoxicated or even whether he was conscious, it really would not matter. The argument over here is that the accused came towards the victim with an unjustifiable amount of speed. He knew what he was doing. He still did it anyway.
But your post-mortem report says that there are no fractures, there are only contusions, no damage to internal organs, no fractures or dislocations.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to point out that the autopsy clearly specifies that cause of death is blunt force injury due to collision. May the counsel move on, Your Honor?
I think your time is over.
May the counsel conclude? Okay. The counsel would like, so this is clearly a case of murder and not culpable homicide, not amounting to murder, because all the 4 stages that are established in this case are satisfied. The counsel would like the Honorable Court to note that the defense's entire case is based on circumstantial evidence. The only person they could find to corroborate this story of theirs was the accused himself. They have no other witness that they could bring to the court. And the prosecution has fulfilled its burden of proof by proving beyond reasonable doubt. The defense has not been able to throw even a shadow of doubt on all the evidence that is presented before this Honorable Court today. In light of the burden, we humbly pray that the Honorable Court will convict Mr. Naren of brutally murdering Mr. Baldev. Thank you, Your Honor.
In this case, the prosecution had to prove the guilt of the accused person beyond reasonable doubt, and the onus of that laid solely on the prosecution. So the accused in this particular case has been charge sheeted of 2 offences. One is section 302, which is punishment for murder, and the other one is section 427. At the outset, I'd like to state that 427 is not merely mischief. 427 is an aggravated form of mischief which causes a damage of worth rupees 50 or more. At the outset, I'd like to state that nothing from the prosecution side has been proven that the damage, if any, that was caused was at least 50 rupees or more than 50 rupees. And furthermore, the property in question, mischief can only happen on somebody else's land, but here the property was in dispute. We are not clear on who the owner of the property was. Now, bringing Your Honor back to the arguments and the closing statement on the offence of 302. Your Honor, firstly, I would like to respectfully submit that the accused had no intention whatsoever of killing the deceased person. And how do we infer the intention of a person? Obviously, we cannot go inside the mind of a person and see whether his intention was actually to kill the accused person or not. So we infer the intention from the act, the conduct of the deceased, of the accused person. So here, Your Honor, firstly, the conduct of the accused person of choosing 6:30 as the time to avoid any sort of confrontation with the deceased person. Secondly, his act of explicitly asking his son that you don't intervene, I don't want this conflict to aggravate any further. Thirdly, his conduct of moving away from the well as soon as he realized that his brother is drunk, he can do anything under this intoxicated condition. So it's in both of our best interests that I move right away from the well. So this is the conduct of the accused person, which clearly, and furthermore, Your Honor, after he saw the deceased person lying unconscious near the well, he got off the tractor, he tried to help the deceased person, but he was forced to go away from the body because the wife of the deceased person was creating hue and cry that I don't want you to be here, you go away from this place. Now coming, Your Honor, to the witnesses, the so-called independent witnesses that the prosecution has solely based their case on. Your Honor, firstly, I'd like to point out that there is a major inconsistency between the testimonies of the two prosecution witnesses that have been produced. So on one hand, we have Mr. Ramakrishna saying that he witnessed the entire incident, and during the entire incident, there was not even one single instance where he saw that the accused person was off the tractor. However, on the other hand, we have Mr. Ankit, who claims to have seen that the accused person was off the tractor, and then when the confrontation got aggravated, because he had the intention to kill the deceased person, he jumped onto the tractor and rode the tractor over him. So this is a major inconsistency, and we don't know what is true. Furthermore, Your Honor, coming to your point of whether this death was intentional or not, I would like Your Honor to refer to the autopsy report. In the autopsy report, the medical examiner, he states that this was an accidental death. Had it been an intentional death, he would have clearly stated that this was a homicidal death. You please convict the accused person. However, this was not the case here. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have the testimony of Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, to whom the accused person went right after the incident. He claims that the injuries on the body of the accused person were consistent with somebody who was driving a tractor and braked so hard, came to a sudden stop so as to avoid injury to somebody. Now the prosecution asked Mr. Rajiv Malhotra that these injuries could have been caused even if the person rode the tractor over the deceased person and then came to a brake. Now, Your Honor, for dealing with this, I would like you to refer back to the testimony of Mr. Ankit Sharma. He said that even after he rode the tractor over the deceased person, he did not stop. He continued moving. So then how did the injuries come? If according to his statement, which the prosecution is very heavily relying on, if we go by their case, they say that he rode the tractor and then came to a sudden halt. But however, their own witness is saying that he drove it smoothly over it and did not come to a sudden halt. Then how do you explain those injuries? There is only one single explanation, Your Honor, that he tried his level best to prevent the deceased person from getting run over by the tractor. Now, Your Honor, I would ask you to refer back to the autopsy report again. In the autopsy report, it is clearly mentioned that the alcohol content in the blood of the deceased person was way above the legally permissible limits. So this shows that there was a very high probability, a very high chance that since the deceased person was not fully in control of his senses, there was a very high chance he was aggravated. He could have jumped right in front of the tractor when the accused person was trying to move away from the land so as to avoid any further confrontation. Yes, sir.
That has not been your suggestion to any of the prosecution witnesses. So as far as your self-defense or that he came in front of the tractor, that was never put to any of the witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, you cannot really argue that at this stage, since there is no suggestion.
Your Honor, agreed. We're not saying that it was the act of the accused person moving away from the well was an act of self-defense. We are merely arguing that the act of him moving away from the well was to avoid any further confrontation. Okay, Your Honor. So now coming to the charge of 427. 427, I'm very sorry to say, but 427 is not merely mischief, as prosecution has wrongly pointed out. They say it's simply mischief. However, section 427 clearly says that it has to be mischief along with a damage which of which the value should be more than 50 rupees or 50 rupees. So now the prosecution has not examined even one single witness to show that damage, if any, was caused, was at least rupees 50 or more than 50 rupees. So how can this honorable court in their good conscience convict the accused person of this offence when no evidence has been presented from the prosecution side? Because my client, insofar as 427 and 302 is concerned, he is deemed to be innocent until proven guilty. And finally, Your Honor, in my concluding statement, I would like to say that in light of the glaring contradictions between the testimonies between the so-called independent witnesses that the prosecution has relied on, and in light of the autopsy report which mentions that it was an accidental death, and in light of the testimony of Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, who claims that the accused person tried his level best, which were indicated by the injuries, to save the deceased person, I humbly submit that the prosecution has failed to meet their burden of proof, which is proving the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. Thank you, Your Honor.
Exceeded the time limit by 3 minutes 23 seconds.
Examine a witness. The first thing is to administer an oath. That applies to both sides. Just to start by saying that. Secondly, whenever the prosecution is examining their witness and you encounter a leading question, which I saw several were put, but you did not raise even a single objection. Then they were cross-examining your witness and you put an objection. So that was a point which you need to keep in mind. When a party calling the witness is putting words in their mouth, that's when you ask and object for a leading. Okay. That's something that this side should have done. And anything else?
Yes, couple of points. Let me use this. He's got a better voice. Does this work? Something somewhere?
Does that. Good.
So, couple of things, very importantly. You do not put a leading question to your own witness. The other side should have objected. You did. He's right. The only way you can actually put a leading question is when you declare that your witness is hostile. That's where you put in leading questions. So one, you were leading your witness. Real time, in real court, even the judges would be objecting to that. Your questions were complex, compound questions. What you were doing is that you were putting two different issues together to actually either get an affirmation or a negative answer. You should have objected to that, you didn't. Importantly, when you are going to rely on a particular facet or a story, that is going to be your final arguments. You have to put that to the other side as suggestions. None of you did. So since there were no suggestions, you have not taken your witness to a particular, or your story to a particular conclusion, which you're supposed to put in. Most of your questions were also opinionated. So there were a lot of opinions that you were seeking that perhaps would not be correct unless the witness is an expert witness, for example, a doctor, right? You had no precedents or citations to put, which you put in, which was good. Also, when you ask a question like, in your opinion, what was that? When a tractor runs over a person, could you kill the person? That's, okay, there's something called Wensbury principle. Wensbury principle is what a reasonable man would do in a particular situation. So you don't really have to argue a Wensbury principle. You know, that's like saying that if I give you poison enough, if you stab you a number of times, do you think you will die? Or something like that. You don't have to do that. So that's one place where you guys wasted a lot of time, right? You were a hard hitter when it came to cross-examination, but you were actually trying to reiterate the same point again and again. No use. Let me just see. What else? So two important things which was very surprising. One, you had the same witness give a statement under 161 and then under 164. A question should have come from your side as to why the same witness had to give a statement under 164. You also had to justify the said fact. There are two reasons. One, when you're not really sure about your witness. I mean, if you're not sure that the witness is good to stand in court, you take him to a magistrate. There were certain incongruences. You should have asked those incongruences. You should have hammered those. Also, interestingly, your witness was very well prepared. Congratulations. One thing which was very surprising is that none of you relied on the site plan. Now, the site plan had something very interesting, that the tractor and the trolley were supposed to be left in and around the well. While the site plan showed that this was right in the middle of the disputed and the non-disputed land. So that was one point that you needed to justify and you needed to hammer on, because your defense could have been that you wanted to escape but could not, because he was right there. So he was following you. Your self-defense case would have become stronger and you needed to justify the fact. So I don't see any of you basically harping on the site plan, which is probably one of the most important documents when it comes to criminal law. Anything else?
Suggestion, yes, I agree with Kapil. You need to put, but I think in this case, the medical evidence threw that up. So you could have argued it, but yes, if you put it in the, but here the problem was the wife was not examined, right? So, I mean, to put that the deceased was under the influence of alcohol to a shopkeeper maybe did not lie. But nonetheless, yes, you finish your cross by putting a suggestion. But if something throws up, some evidence throws up a facet of fact, it is still arguable. And suggestion law is very fluid right now. Indian law tends to take not putting suggestion very, very seriously. But it's something that is dying in the entire Commonwealth. And I think suggestions should now be done away with. That's my personal.
To go, unfortunately, here. Right, that's it, guys. Thank you.
But well done, both the teams.
Now we are going to give time to our judges in order to give marks to them, and then we are going to announce the marks at the end of this competition. You both can proceed and sit in your. Request both the teams, whenever they are going to start, to introduce themselves and also introduce the fact whether they are the prosecution or the defense to the judges. As already mentioned, and you would be apprised of the fact that each team is going to get 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the stopwatch is going to make some sound, and after that we are not going to interrupt you. You need to get that idea by yourself. Thereafter, the timer is going to begin, the stopwatch is going to begin. We are just going to apprise the judges that this is the time by which the participants have exceeded their timeline. So I request now both the teams to take it over. Thank you.
Okay. Am I audible? Yes. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Today we are representing the prosecution and we are UIC 19. With the permission of the court, we may begin the chief examination of the prosecution witnesses. We'd like to call Mrs. Priya Singh to the stage. Good afternoon, Mrs. Priya. Can you please state your relationship to the deceased?
I was the wife of the deceased.
All right. And can you please narrate the events that unfolded on the morning of the incident?
So on the morning of 30th, I was working in the kitchen, and when my husband ran off shouting chore, and I looked around and they were having a heated argument, and then I continued with my work, and I was putting away the dishes when I heard the engine. I looked back, and Naren was threateningly maneuvering the tractor towards my husband. The next thing I know, my husband was hit by the tractor and he was lying on the floor. My instinct was to run towards him. I ran and I begged Naren to check him to make sure that he's okay. He got off the tractor, he looked, but he had a very weird response. He was very calm. It seemed as if he intended to do that. And he walked off to his place. I went there, I screamed, I looked for help, but nobody was there. Then I took my husband to the hospital.
All right, thank you for that. And can you please tell me where the tractor and the tanker were located?
They were in the middle of the ground where the two properties were coinciding.
And did Baldev, your husband, perhaps initiate any physical altercations during this incident?
No, it was purely verbal.
So did he by chance do anything to put himself in front of harm's way, such as maybe climbing onto the tractor?
No, he didn't.
All right. All right, Your Honor. So could Baldev have the opportunity to escape the tractor?
No, he didn't.
And were you aware of Mr. Baldev's intoxication during the incident?
Objection, leading question, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we're trying to ascertain facts. All right. Do you think his intoxication perhaps impaired his motor functions during this incident?
No, he was fully aware of what's happening.
All right. And so from what you viewed, did this seem intentional on the part of Mr. Naren?
Yes, it did. He had the chance to stop, but he didn't.
Okay. And what were these ongoing disputes between your husband and Mr. Naren?
So ever since my father-in-law died, there have been disputes between the two brothers over the land. And up till now, it was purely verbal, but 30th June was something else.
All right. So this was a regular occurrence, these altercations.
Yes.
And Mrs. Priya, why didn't you intervene during these altercations?
As I said, these arguments were purely verbal up till now. Had I known it would turn into something else, I definitely would have intervened.
Indeed. And the property that contained the well belonged to your husband as per his father's intentions.
Yes.
All right. And post the incident, did Naren seem remorseful?
Not at all. He was very calm. It seemed as if he had the intention of killing my husband.
All right. And did you perhaps tell him to go away from the scene?
No, on the contrary, I asked him to help me, but he walked off. He ignored me.
Indeed, Mrs. Priya. That is all. Thank you. We'd like to call Mr. Ankit Sharma as our next witness. Hello.
Mr. Ankit Sharma, could you narrate what you had witnessed at in the scene?
So I was in my shop and I was dealing with some goods and selling it off to my customer, and then suddenly I heard an altercation that was going on between Naren and Baldev, and then I saw Naren in the tractor and he moved the tractor rashly towards Mr. Baldev. Mr. Baldev tried to move out of the way, but after that, whatever happened.
All right. Do you think, in your opinion, from where you were able to observe, that Naren's action could indicate any sort of conflict?
There seemed to be some sort of a conflict. Naren seemed to be very, very agitated before the incident.
All right. Just to confirm, Mr. Sharma, you had mentioned in your statement that from where you could observe, you felt that there were no mechanical failure in the tractor. Am I correct?
Yes, the tractor seemed to be functioning all right.
All right. So moving further, in your opinion, do you think the tractor could have easily been stopped without hitting Baldev?
I think so, yes. The tractor could have been stopped.
All right. So Mrs. Priya mentioned that she had called for her neighbors to come help. And since you had mentioned you were in the vicinity, was there any particular reason that you could not go and help there?
As
Your
I
Honor,
mentioned...
it's a leading question. Objection.
Your Honor, we're just trying to ascertain the fact that he was in the scene and why wasn't he able to help Priya at the scene?
As I mentioned before, it was very, very busy at my shop and I had a customer over there and I had to tend to their needs.
All right. You had mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that Baldev had tried to get away from the tractor, but he had failed to do so because the tractor had hit him, right? So do you think that Baldev had control over his motor functions because he was able to get away?
Yes, he seemed like he was trying to get out of the way of the tractor, so I would assume that he had full cognitive functions.
All right. So just to confirm, if any intoxication was there, it hadn't affected him to such a way that his motor functions were not absent?
Yes, I don't think the intoxication was enough.
All right. So since you mentioned that you were a local shopkeeper, have you witnessed any such incidents between the brothers before?
I mean, I have been dealing with the family since ages, so I'm aware that there was a property dispute and such altercations have happened before.
All right. So my last question to you, Mr. Sharma, do you think that Naren had the intention to cause such an incident?
The tractor seemed to be moving really smoothly, and I didn't see any attempt to stop it. And also, he was seemed very extremely agitated. So I feel as if there was may have been some sort of an intention on his part.
All right. Thank you so much.
For the defense. You are saying to stand. Right. So, ma'am, you saw everything that happened there, right?
Yes.
Right. In your chief, yes, indeed, Your Honor. Thank you. So, in your chief, you mentioned that you saw Narayan get on the tractor.
Yes.
And then looked, indeed.
Yes.
So, did you see him getting on the tractor?
No.
So, when you saw him, he was below the tractor, correct?
Yes.
Right. So, where was your husband at that time?
My husband was in front of the tractor.
In front of the tractor. Right. And you were in the kitchen, right?
Yes.
You could see everything clearly.
Yes.
Right. So, so Narayan got on the tractor, then what happened?
Then he hit my husband.
He hit your husband.
He accelerated and he hit my husband.
He immediately accelerated and hit your husband.
He was threateningly maneuvering the tractor and then he hit my husband.
So he was threatening maneuvering the tractor, then he hit your husband.
Yes.
Right. So how long did this threateningly maneuvering last for?
It
Roughly
was
a rough average, if you could give.
Roughly 3 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes?
Yes.
That's good. Right. So your husband used to drink, of course, right?
Yes.
How regularly?
Not very regularly, only when he had problems.
Right. So did you get up together that day on 30th
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Were you together that day or after waking up till the incident happened?
Yes, I was working in the kitchen and he was standing there.
Did you see him drinking?
No, not that morning, he wasn't drinking.
Your Honor, we're trying to establish them. Thank you. So you did not see him drinking, right?
Not that morning.
Right, but he was drunk. Did he look drunk to you?
No, he didn't.
So he was moving normally?
Yes.
Was he shaking?
No.
He was fidgeting?
No.
Right. So what was the temperament of your husband like?
My husband was a very loving man and he loved his family. He was very agitated about the whole dispute and he wasn't liking the fact that Narayan was
Right.
so aggressive about it.
Right, so where was, you found the body, correct?
Yes.
You were the last person to see him alive, right?
Yes.
So where was the body found?
There, where Narayan left the tractor.
Where was the tractor left?
It was right between the divide that they had created on the property.
Right, to divide the boundary line.
Yes.
Right. So, ma'am, the police, you told the police that where the body was found, right?
Yes.
The police in their report have mentioned the body and tractor was found near the well. Did you tell them near the well or did you tell them near the
No,
boundary
I
line?
showed them where they were. It was near the boundary line.
You showed them where the boundary. So you're saying
Yes.
they made a mistake.
Yes.
It was their fault.
Yes.
Right. Were you there when the police made that report?
I wasn't.
Did they
there.
ask you?
Yes, they did ask me, and then I went back inside my
So
house.
they took your permission to put your name as a witness, right?
Yes.
And you did put your name there.
Yes.
Did you sign that document?
No.
You did not sign that document.
No,
Did
I
they
wasn't
ask you to
asked.
sign it?
No.
They did not ask you to sign it. Right. So these fights are common, right?
The verbal fights were common.
Right. Had they ever gotten physical?
No.
No. That day, how was your husband trying to stop Narayan?
He was trying to talk him down, and he was.
But he was on the tractor, right? So how would a person below the tractor stop a person on the tractor by talking to him?
He was talking to him.
Talking to him. He was
Yes.
shouting?
No, he was just very animate about it. He was asking him to get down to
No, but
discuss
you just
about
said
it.
he was in front of the tractor, right?
Yes, he was animate, and he was asking him to get down.
So he was coming
to
in front of
talk.
the tractor.
He was in front of the tractor.
He's coming
yeah.
in front of the tractor, right. Now, was he trying to, when the tractor started moving, did he try to move, your husband?
Yes, he did, but there wasn't enough time.
In which direction the tractor moving?
Right in front.
Right in front. Right. So did your husband try to come in front of the tractor?
He tried to move away from the tractor.
Tried to move away from the tractor.
Yes.
Right. Did he try to get on the tractor?
No.
You did not see him like that?
No, he
When
didn't.
did you go on the scene?
Right after he was hit, I ran towards them.
Acha, okay. Did you see your Bhai Sahab?
Yes.
What did you say to him?
I was asking him to come back to help me take my husband to the hospital, but he ignored me.
Right. So you did not told him to help you, right?
Yes,
He
I did.
ignored you.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Defense would like to call the next witness. Please. Right. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Thank you. So you said you have been delivering supplies since ages, right?
Yes.
So you must know the family very well.
Fairly well.
You know about their dispute?
I was aware that there was some dispute related
You know
to
they
the
used to fight
Yeah.
regularly.
Regularly, they used to have some
Where were you standing when
altercations.
you saw this thing happening?
I was standing a little away from the property around my shop,
On your shop. So but you could still see clearly.
fairly clearly.
So you were wearing the specs that time.
Yes, I was wearing my spec.
You were wearing the specs that time, right? You still see clearly. How far away is it roughly from your shop to the place of the incident?
Approximately 100 meters.
So you could see 100 meters.
I mean, I'm not sure about the distance.
Right. So and you saw Baldev coming in way of the tractor.
I'm sorry, could you
You
repeat that?
saw Baldev in way of the tractor, right?
Yeah, Baldev was around that tractor.
Baldev on the tractor. You said that you saw Baldev in front of the tractor in your chief, correct?
Yes, around the tractor.
Indeed, right. And you and then what happened?
I saw him around the tractor. There was a lot of animated discussions between the two, and then Naren suddenly started moving the tractor very fast.
Right. And you did not see what happened before that?
Before that,
There
before
was some
the
maneuvering, right? There was a lot of maneuvering.
yeah, a
Why
little
would he
bit.
maneuver the tractor if he wanted to accelerate directly?
I mean, I'm not sure. I just saw him moving the tractor
So
very,
you just
very
saw him
fast.
moving the tractor, right?
Moving
you,
the tractor
You do
very
not
fast.
know how exactly what would have happened, right? Because you were seeing from 100 meters away. Your Honor, we are allowed to ask leading question cross. Thank you. So you could not testify to what was the intention. You were seeing from 100 meters away, correct?
No, but he was moving the tractor very, very fast. So obviously, if he's moving the tractor,
So he was moving in the same direction or trying to circle left, right, center, forward, anything?
I saw him aiming right towards Baldev. It was moving very fast towards him.
And Baldev looked normal to you?
Baldev seemed like he was trying to get out of the way of the
Did
tractor.
did he look normal? Was he acting like a normal person would?
I mean, how a reasonable person would try to avoid the tractor.
So he looked normal. He did not look drunk to you at all.
I mean, Baldev, I mean, I can't really comment on.
Do you know he used to drink?
Yeah, I was aware that he may have drunk
He's a
alcohol
regular
on.
drinker, right?
I mean, I cannot really comment on that. I was not that close
But you
to
saw
them.
him try to get away from the
Yeah,
side.
I saw him trying to get away from
Did
it.
he move in a normal speed?
I mean, he tried to move like how a reasonable person would,
Right.
but then
Thank
it was
you.
too quick.
Thank you, Your Honor. Witness is excused. Defense witnesses, the first one being Amanpreet Singh, to stand.
Can you please state your name and the relation to the accused?
My name is Amanpreet Singh and I'm the son of the accused.
Can you please tell to the court how were the relations between your father and uncle?
Between my father and, and my uncle?
Yes.
My father was is a very loving person, but there were disputes between because of the property. So there were some times when my uncle would become very aggressive when it came to the dispute. My father is very calm, so he would take things very calmly.
Okay, so your temperament of the uncle was quite high.
Yes.
Okay, and during this heated arguments, did it ever go physical or heated, very heated?
He was very heated.
Okay. So you saw the incident unfolding in front of your eyes?
Yes, I did.
So what happened during the morning of the June 30th?
So my father, he went to fetch some water. He wanted to do only, did not want to get into any things between him and his brother. Okay. He went to fetch water and he was only focusing on that when suddenly my uncle came and he started accusing my father of theft and he started shouting at my father. My uncle got on the tractor
So
and...
he was not there on the tractor when you saw him?
No.
Okay, and then he got onto the tractor?
Yes, he wanted to go away.
Okay, so how did your uncle respond to the water stealing argument?
Sorry?
How did your father respond to the water stealing argument? Was he getting into any physical altercation? Did he respond?
No, my father did not get to any physical altercation.
And how did your uncle respond to that?
Uncle was very aggressive towards my father because that morning he was very aggressive also from what I had confronted that.
Okay, later what happened after that? After your father got into the tractor?
So my father got on the tractor trying to move away, but my uncle was trying to get on the tractor, trying to stop my father
How did you try to stop him?
by getting on the tractor.
Getting onto the
And in front of the tractor.
Okay,
like,
and what did your father do to de-escalate the situation?
he was trying to move away and he was trying not to hurt his own brother.
Okay.
So he was trying to move the tractor here and there.
So he
in
was
order-
trying his best to de-escalate the situation.
Yes, he was.
Okay. How did the injury occur in the question? The main injury. How did he got hit?
So, in the course of time, when my father was trying to avoid his brother, this accident took place. So, like I stated, that my uncle was again and again coming in front of the tractor, also trying to get onto the tractor. So, at that course of time, he came in front of the tractor, and by accident, my father happened to hit.
Okay, and
my
what did
uncle.
your father do next after that?
My father got down the tractor trying to help my father, my uncle.
So your father did try to help.
Yes,
the
he
uncle.
did.
Okay. Did your uncle used to drink? If you're aware of
Yes.
that? Okay. How was he? From whatever you could see, was he acting like a reasonable person during the crime scene?
He was drunk.
He was drunk. Could you
Yes.
see it very clearly? That was
I could make out. Yeah.
Okay. Was there anyone else at the crime scene when you saw him?
No.
Okay. Did you see the wife of the deceased in the question?
No, I did not. From where I was standing, my view, I could not see.
Okay. And why did you not try to stop your father?
Because I was in a state of shock. I could not understand what to do. And at first, I thought that it is just going to be a normal argument like it usually happened. But the things turned differently. And I was in very shock. So I did not understand what to do at that point of time.
Thank you so much. Deepest condolences of mine. You may go. Thank you. The witness is excused. The defense would like to call its second witness for cross. Sir, please state your name to the court.
Rajiv Malhotra.
What were you entrusted the job with?
So I was the doctor of the accused.
Okay. So when the body was it happened to bring to a hospital, what could you all examine? Was it fresh? The wounds were fresh? What could you all examine?
So I saw a sprained, I examined the bones and muscles of the wrist. They were sprained.
Okay.
Also there were bruises on the chest and the forehead.
Okay.
And the wounds were fresh. They must have taken place in the last 5-6 hours.
Okay, last 5-6 hours. So what did the injury, what all the injury, the wounds there, what all did it reflect? What could be the cause of the injury?
So given the bruises on the chest and given that I've dealt with similar incidents and cases before, it felt as if there is a vehicular accident and as if the driver who was seated on the wheel has banged himself or there has been a collusion with the steering wheel on the chest.
Okay. So did the injury in question reflect anything about any kind of forceful brake applied, anything like that sort?
So given the injury, there are high chances that a forceful brake was applied and the driver he hit himself against the steering.
Can that injury occur in any case if the brakes were not applied?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. Did the deceased in the question or the father or the accused in the question ever visit you before this incident?
Yes, I was the family doctor.
You were their family doctor, okay. So do you know any about the drinking habit of the deceased in the question?
Yes.
Okay.
He was a heavy drinker.
He was a heavy drinker. Yeah. Can you please state to the court how much is 0.20% alcohol blood level? What does it indicate?
So 0.20% or 20% blood alcohol level is an extremely high level of alcohol.
And what the consequences
it's
can
very
follow?
unreasonable. The symptoms that would have been present, as in the person would have been all over the place, complete lack of motor skills, no control and coordination of the body whatsoever, zero balance. Person is not even capable of understanding the external sensory stimulus and his sensory organs are having delayed responses.
Okay. So if a person would have been drunk at such a stage, so he would not understand the consequences that might follow and not his actions on his own, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, doctor.
The cross-examination of the defense witness. We'd like to call Mr. Amanpreet Singh to the stand. Mr. Singh, your father was aware of the ongoing disputes that he had with his father, I mean with his brother, is this correct?
Yes.
So, why do you think he went to fetch water from the well, knowing that this was a disputed and contentious issue?
Because according to the will, as of I am aware, he was supposed to be having the land. There's a dispute, so we cannot say whether the land is actually my uncle's or my father's.
So you think that your father did not intend for any confrontation to take place?
No.
However, this was a contentious issue, so did it not occur to you or your father that this would lead to a confrontation?
The reason why my father went early morning the reason is this only because he did not want to confront my uncle at that point of time.
Indeed, indeed. So in your statements to the magistrate, you've stated that you viewed the entire incident from a short distance. Is
Yes.
this correct? And why did you not intervene so that it did not escalate further?
I did not intervene because I thought that usually the arguments used to take place. I thought it was a normal argument and it would not turn out to be like that. But the things went so quickly, as you will be aware, the things were so quick that I could not take any action. I did not know what to do.
Indeed. So you claim that you saw the disease try to climb onto the tractor.
Yes.
Is this correct? In your opinion then, why do you think your father continued to drive the vehicle in that scenario?
He was trying to get away from the disease.
But
from my
did this
uncle.
not raise any apprehension that any injury could be caused in such a situation?
Your Honor, it's an argumentative question.
I'm not aware.
Indeed. So did your father make any attempt to stop the vehicle
He did.
during Mr. Baldev trying to climb the tractor?
He did. He tried as much as he could in order to avoid his brother get hurt. So he'd also tried to move the vehicle away, tried to stop.
I'm referring to stopping the vehicle completely, turning off the engine and getting off the tractor, not maneuvering the vehicle around.
Your Honor, again, argumentative question.
I'm trying to ascertain facts, Your Honor. Okay. So what did your father do immediately post Baldev being hit?
Like I've already mentioned, he got off the tractor, tried to help his brother. Because my uncle became unconscious, he got down in order to help his own brother. Yes.
And did you see Mrs. Priya at the scene of the crime?
No.
You said you were in a state of shock in your chief
I was.
examination and you weren't able to view Mrs. Priya. Is that correct?
I did not say I wasn't able to view Mrs. Priya like after the incident took place. She did come running suddenly because I did not see her like encountering the entire incident, but I did see her running suddenly towards her husband and she started yelling at my father saying, "Go away, don't stay here," and yes.
So Mrs. Priya told your husband to go away from the
Yes,
scene, is this correct?
she did.
So your father left immediately after the
He did decide to
after
leave.
this being told. All right.
Yes.
So why didn't you or your father, irrespective of being told to go away, call for help or any kind of help? Call the police, the ambulance, or call for any neighbors to come tend to your injured relative?
I would say that after my aunt, she yelled at my father to leave. So my father also decided that my aunt is in a very, in a panic situation. But my father as well was hurt at that point of time. So I did take him to Dr. Rajiv.
Indeed, but you did not make any attempt to call the police or the ambulance to tend to the injured individual, which was Mr. Baldev.
By the time we came back, Aunt Priya had already taken. So
indeed, that is all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Malhotra, so when Mr. Narain had come into your clinic, could you observe his state of mind? What was his state of mind exactly?
So he seemed regretful, yeah, and he was upset about something.
So did he tell you anything about the incident? Why was he regretful?
No, we didn't have a discussion.
But you could make out from his face that he was regretful.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think, in your opinion, that Narain's injuries were so serious in nature that he should have come immediately to the clinic instead of tending to his hurt brother?
I think that any patient should come immediately to the clinic after injuries because there can be complications further. Given that it is a fresh injury, it is better to come immediately.
Right, but you had mentioned that these injuries were mere bruises. Am I not wrong? Am I correct?
There is always, in this case, there would have been a chance of rib fracture or something more serious.
But would that be a reason for him to not tend to his brother? That
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
all right, Your Honor. Next question. So you had mentioned in your statement that you were almost certain that only by applying a sudden brake could these injuries have occurred, right?
Right.
Right. So I would just want to ask you, in your expert opinion, would you be able to ascertain whether such an incident could occur after colliding into a body?
It felt like there was a collision with the steering of the wheel. So
the steering wheel cannot, there won't be any relation with the steering wheel if he collided into the body? Because it's, in my statement it was mentioned that the body was almost 80 kgs. So such a heavy body and the tractor going into the body, do you think, in your expert opinion, that there would be no collision with the steering wheel at that point?
the injuries seem to be a result of the collision. So collision with the steering wheel.
Okay, all right. So you had also mentioned that about his alcohol levels and how he wouldn't be having any motor functions working at that point. So how do you think in that situation would a reasonable person who's not having any motor functions be able to climb a tractor, or at least attempt to climb a tractor?
Can always attempt to climb. That is all I can say, yeah.
All right, so with
There's
that,
nothing that can say that he might not have climbed. Can't say certainly that person cannot climb or do something.
right, but
People do all sorts of things after
but you had mentioned that he had no motor control on his own. So wouldn't you think that if he had tried to attempt to climb the tractor, he might have fallen down because he had no motor control?
Yeah, he might have fallen down also.
Right. All right. Thank you. That's all. Hello. Your Honor, India's justice system has always strived to deliver. Sorry. Your Honor, India's justice system has always strived to deliver justice to affected victims of crime, and today's case is a prime example of such. The untimely death of Mr. Baldev has certainly disheartened his wife, Mrs. Priya Singh, and others who have considered him a pillar of support and have loved him dearly. Today, we have the evidence and we have laid the facts bare. The defendant, Mr. Naren Singh, agitated but fully aware of the ongoing property dispute, had the motives, means, and opportunity to cause this murder. The witnesses today have provided an account of the incident, and we were able to establish that Mr. Naren had full control over the tractor. He took disproportionate action. He did not try to de-escalate the situation by stopping the tractor and intentionally caused grievous injuries to Mr. Baldev, which ultimately led to his death. Further, the oral evidence provided by the witnesses is direct and not based on hearsay, which thus confirms the Section 60 of the Evidence Act. If it may be all right with the court, can I proceed? Thank you. The accused's intention here was to commit murder, and hence, such intention cannot be called an accident, which confirms the landmark judgment of K.M. Nanavati versus State of Maharashtra. The autopsy report also indicates that there were major vehicle injuries caused to the deceased, and intoxications could not have impaired his motor functions enough to walk away from the scene. Baldev had even, as I mentioned, tried to step away from the tractor, but Naren did not allow him to do so. The Panchnama report clearly indicates destruction to the property and as such makes Naren liable for mischief under 427 of the SBC 1860. The prosecution, Your Honor, believes that we were able to prove the accused's guilt beyond reasonable doubt that the Indian justice system believes in. This has also been stated in many, many notable precedents in law. A notable one being Mrs. Subhash Chandra versus State of Rajasthan. Thus, we truly pray to this honorable court to grant a verdict of guilty under sections 302 and 427 of the Saurashtra Penal Code in order to ensure that justice has prevailed and Mr. Baldev Singh can rest in peace and his family could finally focus on healing themselves from such a tragic incident. Thank you.
proceed with the closing. Thank you. Your Honors, the fundamental part of the Indian system is also innocent until proven guilty, which the prosecution has failed to look over. The prosecution has to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused person did indeed commit the act, which has not been proved. The aspect of intention or mens rea has not been touched upon by the prosecution as required by Virsa Singh, the state of Punjab, wherein specifically the court has focused on the third aspect, which is intention. Further on, the victim in this case, Baldev Singh, was severely drunk, as their own report has showed 0.20% alcohol level, which is heavily and has affected his motor functions. He attempted to climb the tractor, came in its way, obstructed its way, and the ground shows severe tire tracks, which is indicative of severe maneuvering of the tractor by the accused. Indicated he was trying to avoid hitting, and the victim got hit because of his own fault when he was drunk. Further on, the charge sheet in this case is not in procedure as per section 173 clause 2, wherein it does not carry the signature of the officer in charge of submitting the charge sheet to the magistrate as is required. Further on, the Panchnama that they have mentioned has no signature of the witnesses that they have attested, namely Priya Singh and Ram Krishna. No signatures have been mentioned, and they have merely attested, which as per the Supreme Court recently in Rajesh was MP, is not enough. Further on, the autopsy report itself confirms the accident to be an accidental manner of death, therefore confirming it was an accident. Thank you, Your Honor.
The prosecution has exceeded the time by 1 minute 19 seconds, whereas the defense hasn't exceeded its time. Now, in case there are certain suggestions or feedbacks that the judges would like to give to the participants, the teams, they may do so.
The second team was sitting here when the first team was going through its motion. And the second team, of course, had the advantage of having the mind of the bench. That's an advantage that probably perhaps should have been avoided.
They were not sitting.
They were?
They were in class.
Then they had somebody hearing it. Because having said that, quickly couple of things. Voice is audible.
Yeah, just give me a second.
You were quick with your objections, but slow when you had to ask them. There were certain points where you should have objected, which you didn't. And perhaps you were disheartened, but you should not leave hope, right? I mean, that's your job, especially when you're on the defense side and you have the government machinery against you, right? That's one. You used precedents without giving a background of the precedents. You did not even say how those are relevant. And that's something that's very important, because you shall never presume that the bench knows. You shall always presume that the bench may know, but they want you to tell them a little more. So when you actually rely on a precedent, you should always say, this is what the background is, this is what is connected, this is what we are relying on, the facet of the precedent. Secondly, in your examination, there were too many opinions that you were seeking. I mean, that's absolutely avoidable. Your questions were created like that you were seeking in your personal opinion, what do you think, etc. That's something that I think I would rather avoid when I'm in court. You, on the other hand, were asking questions that were going against your entire case. I don't know why. So, when you ever ask a question, never ask a question the answer to which you're not too sure of. And if you ever have to, then always have a feeler question, especially on the part of the spectacles. Great thought process, but you should have developed it, you should have tested it before asking a question. I mean, there was no test as to what the number is, whether it's long distance, short distance, etc. I mean, those are questions that would perhaps have given you an inkling whether you should actually go with those questions or not. Also, there was a question that you'd asked which I thought was brilliant as to which side was the tractor moving towards. And the answer to that diffused your question by saying straight. Perhaps you should have concentrated on the fact that it was going through the line of no control, right in the middle, because that's something that you were leading to. perhaps the next question should have brought it to light, right? That's it.
One piece of advice to this side. When you do your closing statement, instead of bringing emotion or ornate language, because you had a very short time frame, go and hit the bullseye. Say that, yes, this witness proves this fact. This fact fits into the ingredient of this offense. Okay? And if you sense that there could be a weakness in your case, address that, because time was of importance. What I felt was that there was too much emphasis on putting up a grand show of eloquence. So evidence is more important. So for your future performances, okay? But both were good sides.
Thank you so very much. So, all the teams performed really well. After this, we are going to definitely announce the results. Um it is rightly said that one never loses. One either learns, or one either wins or learns something. With this, on this particular note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite our faculty coordinator, Professor Aparna Babu George, to felicitate our guest. I request Professor Aparna Babu George to kindly felicitate Mr. Kapil Sankla first. Now I request Professor Aparna Babu George to felicitate Advocate Manu Sharma sir. To divulge the results and speak a few words. Whatever suits you the best, sir. You can come over here, sir.
I was just telling my colleague that you should be giving marks to the witnesses as well. Very well tutored witnesses. Some of them should actually think of a life in theater as well. Seriously, I mean, it'll be a hard time if you guys become witnesses in real life. Right? Good job, fantastic work. All of you are very, very well prepared. I think hats off. It's brilliant coming here, looking at all of you. See the level of preparation that you guys have. And I do understand that there is actually a time limit which we don't have in courts. We can ramble on for hours, till somebody gets really bored. But fantastic job. I won't take a lot of time. Both the teams did brilliantly well. We were a little conscious of the fact that we've been defense attorneys all our life. But we wanted to be very reasonable to the prosecution. Again, very well structured questions, both sides. Of course, experience teaches you what not to ask. Experience also teaches you how to put certain questions. But I think the fact that you went beyond just the brief and you went on questions on the physical abilities and disabilities and the questions as to whether the doctor knew the entire family and all of that also shows that you're going beyond just the brief. And that's what lawyers are about, that you read between the lines and then you go beyond the lines, you color beyond the lines. Brilliant. But somebody has to be a winner and somebody has to be a learner, as my friend just said. As far as the first team is concerned, it is our opinion that the defense will be going to the next round. Having said that, the prosecution, it was a very, very close call. The prosecution again did a phenomenal job. So all the very, very best. Thank you.
I would agree with my friend. Outstanding performance by all of you. But in round two also, the defense goes to the final. Okay. But as my colleague said, as my friend here said, it could just be a bad day. Okay, so don't take it to heart. Learn from the experiences. My friend told you exhaustively what could have been done better. Okay, so just build on that. I recall my first cross-examination in a murder case was a disaster. Okay, but still people continue to engage me. I won the case in appeal, but yeah, I lost it in trial court. So learn from your mistake. That's why it's called trial. And all the best. Keep working. Okay, I like the spirit. I like the energy. And as I said, I love the witnesses. They were the best. They take the cake in this. All the best. God bless.
Request all the trial advocacy members to have a group picture.
Just guys get back. One more. Let's go buy office.